Assalamualaikum everyone. Thank you for coming to this meeting, dear attendees. We shall proceed with the meeting now.
Okay, thank you, our secretary, Mr. Ifzul. Today we could like to discuss about the new client, which is Malaikas dan Berhad. The company has suffered a steady decline in sales and profit and increase in recover debts incurred in recent months. So, in the previous meeting, we already accept the request from the company to review the internet controls over sales and trade receivable system and recommended improvement for their company. I want to ask about the engagement letter. I would like to ask our secretary about the engagement letter. So how do we issue the engagement letter?
Okay, as a secretary, I made an engagement letter to send for our client. This is important because it outlines the fee structure, responsibilities, and obligation of the firm and the client. Without it, each party can be in legal situation. The purpose we send it to our client because it helps us to reduce the risk and avoid the misunderstanding. This means using engagement letter can help reduce professional liability insurance premiums, and many insurers require it. They enable us to expand our profession while reducing our exposure to potential litigation. I mentioned in the engagement letter include our identification, the scope of the engagement, the duration, the price, schedule, and the obligation. For instance, the majority of engagement require the client to be accountable for particular acts and to submit specific record or information. We must be clear about what the client's obligations are and what information we require from the client in order to provide the service. So next, I touch about the documentation of internal control. Effective documentation procedures resulting in a minimum of efficient controls can give small business mean So effective documentation procedures resulting in a minimum of efficient control can give small business a competitive advantage. I prepare and store in hard copy format or electronic media using audit software. Example of the documents that are needed for internal control are the organization policy, a description of the business scope, a detailed explanation of objective, any documents or record essential to the support, including the standard operation procedure. And next is the permanent file. This contains historical data about the client that are of continuing relevance to the audit. The company need to give us the copies of the MOA and also the AOA of the company, chart of account, copies of important contract, documentation of internal control, term of debenture and bond issue. In addition, current file which is include information and data related specifically to the current year's engagement. We need to have the copy of financial statement and auditor's report, audit plan and audit programs, copies of minutes of important committee meetings, working trial balance, adjusting and reclassification journal entries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ifzul, who is our secretary, for the complete explanation about the engagement letter and also for explanation about the document that we need to be considered for the client. All right, Mr. Iman, how about our planning our strategy for this client?
As I mentioned just now about our well-planned schedule, before we start to audit this client, we better set the timing for auditing and mention it to the company as they can prepare their documents needed to be audited after they have closed their accounting records. I think it's better for us to audit this company 30 days after they close the accounting records because between the time we can plan well to audit this company as to avoid clash in time between their time and our time. Why am I saying this? It's because we want to give the better schedule among our editors and avoid pulling of work that will cause difficulty for our auditors to complete the assignment on time. With this well-planned timing, I guarantee that our auditor will audit this company without any misstatement. From here, we can use a few approaches in auditing such substantive procedure, which are designed to generate evidence that an auditor can use to support the assertion that there are no material misstatement in in an entity financial record in terms of completeness, validity, and accuracy, and also the system-based audit approach. It calls for auditor to evaluate the efficiency of an entity internal control and then focus their substantive processes largely in those areas where they believe the system goals won't be achieved.
Thank you to our junior auditor for the explanation about the planning and strategy. How that we all can make a proper planning to review the client internal controls. Oh, I forgot. For Mr. Hafiz, how about the progress the review to this company internal control? What we need to consider in internal control system.
Thank you for asking, Mr. Chairman. Before that, Mr. Secretary, can you please share the slide presentation to us? Okay, thank you for your cooperation. Okay, our progress about this company is we are focusing about their internal control system. It can be defined as the actions taken by the board and management to manage risk and increase the likelihood that established goals will be achieved. There are a few components to be considered in this system, which are control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and lastly is monitoring. So that is what we will be considering in auditing this company. And I believe our auditor have their progress about this company.
Pardon, I want to explain about the questionnaire. We have 4 components. As we can see in the slide, the first component is the controlling the environment. There is a 5 questions that we will ask to the clients about the environment control. Next component is risk assessment. There is also 5 questions that we will ask the client. I will pass back to Mr. Hafiz for another 2 components.
Yes, I have 2 more components. For the third component is control activities. And as for the last component is monitoring.
Okay, senior janitor and junior editor Mr. Iman and Mr. Hafiz for the explanation about progress of main part of audit work, which is our internal control system. Now, we already arrived at the end of our discussion for today. Now, I would like to ask about the outcome for the audit work for the both this client internal control system.
Thank you for asking, Mr. Chairman. We have done auditing these clients, which give us maybe a new experience to a few of our staffs, which this we are dealing with advertising industry. So we have to check their internal control system. However, their internal control system have some weaknesses.
Have some weaknesses. Can you share about it for me?
Of course, okay. First, Sally, the company's accountant, is also in charge in filming some advertisement that caused her to be out of the office for a few days. So the weakness of the situation is no segregation of duties. The company has possibility to misrecord some transactions, such as payments from the customers. Next, the sales representative does not refer to the standard policy of the company when dealing with the customers. The weakness is uncompliance of company employees towards companies' policies and SOPs. The management accountable will be unstable and unmanageable, which will cause difficulties to accountant in performing their duties.
I want to add some. The company's policy is to all payments by check, but there are still some customer that make a payment using cash. It makes the compliance for a customer towards company policy and SOP, runs the risk of being careless with holding the cash, may lead to the thief of the cash. Next, the customer are allowed to defer the deposit payment to a later date upon the sales representative approval. It's allowed late deposit payment to customer that they may be approved by the customer. Like even when the sales representative had approved the service deal, the customer still did not pay the deposit, which will result to the debt management problems.
Okay, thank you to our senior engineer auditor for the explanation about the outcome for the reviewing this client and control system. I think that's all for our discussion today. There is any question for the others?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I guess not.
Okay.
So if there is no question, that's all for our discussion today. Thank you for your attending. The next meeting will be informed later.
Thank you for your time and your cooperation in this meeting. I hereby adjourn the meeting until the next day. Meeting dismissed.